More now on our top story and one of the coalition government's biggest reforms, being described by the Chancellor as a pension revolution. It allows over 55s to cash in their pension and spend the money as and when they want. However, critics say many could be tempted to go on a spending spree, leaving the state to pick up the tab later on. Well, joining me now from Glasgow is Callum Cooper, a pensions advisor and partner at Hymans Robertson and in Westminster, Kate Andrews from the think tank, the Adam Smith Institute. Kate, I'll come to you first. Do you think this pension revolution is a good thing?
I do think it's a good thing, and it's definitely a step in the right direction, giving more people freedom over the money that they've earned over the course of their lifetime. There's no reason that once you've worked very hard for years and years and saved up money, paid your taxes, been a responsible citizen, that you shouldn't be able to spend your money how you want and when you want. I will mention that it's hard to say how many people will be taking advantage of this new scheme, which allows people to trade in their annuities and move to a more flexible system, because there is a cost to trading in those annuities. It's expected that people could be losing, say, up to 20% of their annuity, potentially more, potentially less, when they cash it in. So it's hard to say how many people will be taking advantage of the situation, but I think it's very good that they now have the option to.
Yeah, Callum Cooper, how many people do you think will be taking up this offer?
Well, I think it's helpful to think about how many camps of people will be affected. So there's three camps. There's those that have saved into money purchase defined contribution pensions. So they have £100 billion in assets for those over age 55, so they'll be able to access it. And we think about 5 transfer out in the first 4 months. The second group are those that have old world defined benefit type pensions or funded public sector pension schemes, and they'll be able to transfer their assets into a defined contribution scheme and access those flexibly as well. And we're thinking we'll see around £10 billion of that happening every year for the next few years. And then the third camp, as Kate mentioned, are those that are already retired. They're receiving a regular annual income from an insurer, and there's around £500 billion of value in those assets. Now, they won't be able to cash them in flexibly today. That'll be from next April. That was something that was announced in this year's budget, and I think it's hard to say how many of those will access it, but Kate's absolutely right that the costs of doing it could be as much as 20% of the benefits you give up. And most people, in my view, will be better served if they want a regular, steady annual income for life, sticking where they are and sticking with an annuity, because you can't beat them in terms of value for money if that's what you want.
Yeah, well, Kate, freedom does come with a catch, doesn't it? Not only is Callum saying there that the annuity might be better for security, but also if you take out a lump sum, there could be some tax implications that people haven't been made too aware of.
That's true. There are tax implications. 25% of the lump sums that you take out should be tax-free, but you will be taxed on the 75%, the rest of that you're taking out. But I think the real key here is that we can't have a one-size-fits-all policy when it comes to retirement options. I agree with Callum. Some people will be better suited to a system where they are able to get a steady income over the rest of their lives, but some people won't want that. Different financial issues come up at different times for people, and we should have that flexibility built in, where people can choose to either have that security, to have that income rolling in on a constant basis, or to choose to take out their money when they want to spend it on things that they will know that they need.
So, Callum, flexibility and choice when it comes to pensions is a good thing?
So I think in principle it's a hugely attractive thing. If people have saved up their own savings, they should get to access it as and when. Well, that feels right, but the challenge is how do you do that in a way that balances and protects pensioners and retirees when they come to take their money. So if you think about it, in terms of the risks, there's 3 broad camps of people involved. Those that are over 55 and still working, they'll be able to start to draw down their pensions, and there's a real risk that they'll burn through all their money before they reach retirement age, so then not be able to retire when they want to and potentially have to continue working. Maybe they're not able to do so, and there's a chance they won't be able to retire in dignity. The second group of individuals are those that have reached retirement age and are trying to weigh up, would I like £100 income a week or £150,000 in cash, and that's going to be hugely tempting for them. And even if you can put that temptation to one side, if you make a sort of a cold, logical choice, there's 3 decisions you need to think about. How long do you think you'll live? And we find Club Vita research shows that people underestimate that by 8 years. How long do you need the money to last, secondly? And then thirdly, if you do run out of money in later life, which is a very real risk, then you will fall back onto state benefits, which is around £7,500 to £8,000 a year. And how will that feel? What would that mean for your quality of life in retirement? And then the last camp of people that are affected in terms of risk are those that have already retired, potentially cashing in an annuity. That's very similar to what we see in the final salary world, where people can transfer out and cash in their pensions. That's an advised process, so I'm really hopeful that when we see that happen from April next year that people will have to take advice so that the right people make the right decisions in the right circumstances.
Okay, it was interesting the pitfall that Callum pointed out there, that you might burn through all that money and end up having to rely on the state for benefits. People are going to be expected to become financial experts overnight in how to manage their money.
It's very important that we push the education process and that we inform people of the choices that they're making. But I think this risk that people are going to burn through their money is highly overestimated. We're talking about people who've been responsible tax-paying citizens throughout their entire lives. These are people who were providing for their families, providing for themselves, and balancing their budgets at home, which is a lot better than our government can say. So to then look to these people when they finally get to the point where they can reap the benefits of their hard work and think that they're going to turn into hedonistic spenders just doesn't seem to add up to me. These people will know the cost of their own money far better than anybody else. They will know what it means to make those big decisions. They'll know what it means to have that money taxed, and they'll know when they want it taxed, how they want it taxed, and they'll know what they're going to want to spend it on. This doesn't mean that we should just pretend that some people aren't going to need assistance. Of course, we have to push education, but more importantly, that flexibility for people to be able to choose what they want to spend and how they want to spend it is the most important thing.
Well, Callum, the Chancellor is saying this is a good thing for people to be getting their hands on their money and spend it as they wish. But is there enough guidance out there for people? As I said, people are going to be expected to become financial experts overnight. What is the guidance available to them?
So the government has set up a website called pensionswise.gov.uk, which you can access at the point that you retire. You get 45 minutes worth of telephone guidance or face-to-face guidance. Now the reality is that that is too little too late for many people. You're making the largest financial decision of your life. It's a decision you need to live with for 20 to 30 years, and it is hugely complicated, and it's not reasonable to expect everybody to be life expectancy experts, investment experts, and so on. So accessing that website is a good first step, but the reality is that for many it needs to happen a lot earlier, 10 years prior to retirement, when you can still make a difference for your retirement income and security. You can save more or invest differently, and also 45 minutes is way too little, way too late. If you think about how much time we spend on car insurance, for example, it's a much smaller financial decision. We live with it for a year, it's really simple, and we spend 45 minutes on that. So to spend 45 minutes at that moment of truth when you're deciding what to do with your lifetime savings, that's way too little, way too late.
OK, Callum Cooper and Kate Andrews, thank you. From today, companies that bombard people with sales calls and spam texts could be fined up to £500,000. New laws make it easier for the government to take action against firms harassing people at home with cold calls. Sky's Richard Suchet has the story.
Good morning. This is just a very quick call about your outstanding claim for payment protection insurance.
Oh, hello there, yes. We can see from our records that your boiler...
Our systems show that you're owed £2,985 following your accident.
Most people will have received unsolicited, unwanted calls like this. In fact, they're now so common that 175,000 people filed complaints last year about nuisance calls and text messages. At one time, Martin Bostock was receiving up to 12 cold calls a day. He runs a business from home, which means it wasn't just annoying, it was actually detrimental to his work.
This is misery. And the problem is that the people who are supposed to be designing, implementing and policing the rules, generally speaking, are not people who spend their day at home. So they've got no idea of the real grind and the degradation and the loss of the quality of life that this problem creates.
81% of Brits say they're plagued by nuisance calls. A quarter of the population receive more than 10 calls a week, although some are receiving more than 20 calls a week. And a third of people claim to have been left feeling stressed, bullied or vulnerable.
Cold calling in itself is not illegal, it's a form of direct marketing, but it is an industry that's cloaked in anonymity, and that is a fertile ground for spammers and scammers. And that anonymity can be deeply frustrating because you don't know who's trying to call you. It's almost as if it's their privacy that's being protected. And this is what usually happens when you try to phone them back.